What is up, people? Man, I got a I got a good one today for y'all. If God is real, then why is there so much suffering in the world? This is Ken. I'm your host, and today we're tackling one of the oldest and most difficult questions humanity has ever asked. Why is there so much suffering in the world? We're supposed to be ruled and loved by an all-knowing, all-powerful God. And this is a question that's challenged philosophers, theologians, scientists, and just everyday people for thousands of years. Probably since the beginning of human civilization. Now, I want to be clear. This is not an attack on faith. This is not about disrespecting anybody's beliefs. This is about asking a serious question that many people have wrestled with at some point in their lives. We've all have asked that question. And because let's be honest, when we look around the world, we see a lot of pain. We see children suffering from hunger and disease. We see innocent people caught in warfare. We see natural disasters destroying communities. We see people battling cancer, depression, addiction, poverty, and heartbreak. And for many people, the question becomes, if there is an all-powerful and loving God, why does he allow this to happen? Now, the classic question throughout history, philosophers have described the problem this way. If God is all-powerful, then he has the ability to stop suffering. If God is all-loving, then he would want to stop the suffering. So the question becomes, why doesn't he? Does suffering mean God doesn't exist? Or does suffering point to something more complicated about humanity, free will, and the nature of existence? Now, I've always went back and forth with the free will argument. One answer many believers give is the idea of free will given by God, right? The argument is that God created humans with the ability to make choices. And real freedom means people have the ability to choose good, but also the ability to choose evil. Because think about it. Could we truly love someone if we were programmed like machines? Could kindness have meaning if nobody had the choice to be cruel? The same freedom that allows someone to show incredible compassion also allows someone else to commit terrible acts. War, violence, corruption, and injustice. All of these are consequences of human choices. But what about the natural suffering? Comes another question. What about suffering that isn't caused by humans? What about earthquakes? What about hurricanes? What about children born with terrible diseases? What about suffering that seems completely random? This is where the conversation becomes even more difficult. Some religious traditions argue that suffering is part of a broken world. Others believe suffering can serve as a purpose by developing courage, compassion, patience, or spiritual growth. But many people still struggle with that answer, and honestly, that's understandable. Because when you're watching someone you love suffer, philosophical answers feel completely empty. They do. Now, the human experience, maybe one of the deepest questions, isn't just why does God allow suffering? Maybe the question is, what do we do with the suffering when it arrives? Because every person who has ever lived has faced some sort of pain. The question is not whether we will experience hardship, but the question is how we respond. Do we become bitter? Do we lose hope? Or do we use our experiences to become more compassionate toward others? Now, the skeptical view, for those who don't believe in God, suffering is often seen as evidence that there is no divine plan. If an all-loving, all-powerful God exists, the world would not look like this. And that's a serious argument, and it deserves to be discussed honestly. Many people have walked away from faith because of suffering they couldn't reconcile. Now, me personally, I often ask the question, going back to the free will argument, that if your all-powerful, all-loving God, who is also all-knowing, who was taught to us that he knew your entire life before you even lived it, before you were conceived, he knew exactly what you would do, how you would be, how you would turn out, how you would end, all before you even came into existence. This God supposedly knew it all. So if he knew that, say, for example, you were going to go through this incredible suffering, then was it really because of free will? I beg to differ. I personally feel like there is no free will. But that's, my personal belief. Now, the faith perspective says that many believers would respond this way. The existence of suffering does not prove God doesn't exist. They would argue that our understanding is limited. A lot of times I hear, we don't know why God does what he does, and it's not for us to know. Like a child who cannot understand why a doctor must perform a painful procedure, humans may not see the bigger picture. Me personally, I call bullshit on that argument. I don't care what the bigger picture is. We shouldn't have to suffer to get there. We shouldn't have to go through all the pain and grief to reach a predetermined end, because as I said, if your God is all-knowing, then he knows what the end result was going to be. Why the hell do we have to suffer to get there? It's my personal argument. Now, whether someone finds that answer satisfying depends greatly on their personal beliefs or experience. Personal reflection. For me, I think this question forces us to confront something important. Life is complicated. The world contains incredible beauty, but it also contains incredible suffering. We see love, we see hatred. We see people building hospitals and people destroying cities. Human existence is filled with contradictions, so forth and so on. I want to hear from you all. Please leave your comments below. Let me know how you feel. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you believe. As I said before, it's not an attack on your belief or on your faith. It's just a discussion that needs to be had. And I feel like we should be able to talk about it, openly and honestly. Do you believe suffering challenges the idea of an all-powerful, loving God? Or do you believe suffering has a purpose that we don't always understand? Excuse me. Have you personally experienced something that made you question your faith? Or did your hardships actually strengthen your faith? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's have a respectful conversation, y'all. Doesn't matter what faith you're a part of or what religious beliefs you hold or not hold. I honestly want to know what you think and how you feel, because whether or not you believe in God or not believe at all, these are questions that affect all of us. Thank you for joining me. I'm your man's Ken Jackson. This has been the Ken Jackson Experience. Sometimes asking the hardest questions is how we search for the deepest answers. I'll see you next time. Peace.